It happened on a quiet Thursday afternoon. The sun was out, the sidewalks were clean, and the little town of Brookville moved with its usual comfortable pace. Nothing ever really happened there. Or so they thought. That's when a man named Michael Grayson stepped out of a high-end jewelry store right on Main Street. Well-dressed, calm and polite, he hadn't bought anything. He'd only spent a few minutes inside, asking the clerk about the most expensive ring in the display. He asked questions, nodded, and left with nothing but a quiet thank you. Just another customer. Except not to everyone. Within 2 minutes, as he walked down the sidewalk, a patrol car slowed beside him, then another one pulled up in front, and before he could take another step, 3 officers were around him. "Hands where I can see them," one of them barked. Michael didn't flinch. He calmly raised his hands and said, "Is there a problem, officers?" They didn't answer. Instead, they started asking questions: where he was going, what he was doing in that part of town, why he was in that jewelry store. He answered every question clearly, without hesitation. He even offered them his ID before they asked. Still, their eyes narrowed. One of the officers, a younger one with a buzz cut, leaned in and said, "You fit the description." Michael tilted his head. Description of what? They didn't respond. He stood still, his hands visible. No signs of aggression. Yet, 2 of the officers suddenly grabbed him. One twisted his arm behind his back, the other shoved him toward the hood of the car. His face hit the hot metal with a thud. His ID fell to the ground. They didn't pick it up. People on the sidewalk slowed. Some watched from the safety of their store windows. A woman pulled out her phone to record, but when one of the officers looked her way, she slipped it back into her purse and walked away. No one said anything. Kyle tick natsibent. Knuckle didn't resist. Not once. He said only one thing while they handcuffed him. "You really don't know what you've just done." The officer scoffed. "Oh, we know exactly what we're doing." But they didn't. Not even close. One of the officers radioed something in while the others checked his pockets, still refusing to look at his ID on the ground. Guy comes out of a jewelry store, asks about a $20,000 ring, walks away without buying anything. "Come on," one said. "Probably casing the place." Another muttered, "Let's take him in. Let the station figure it out." Michael remained silent in the back seat as they drove off. His face was calm, too calm. That's when the rookie officer in the passenger seat glanced back and said, "You got something to say?" Michael looked up at him in the rearview mirror and replied, "Just one thing." There was a pause. "I'm remembering everything." The rookie frowned, unsure whether to take that as a threat or a joke. He turned around, but Michael had already closed his eyes, as if preparing for something much bigger than what they thought was happening. By the time they reached the station, the officers were already joking about what they'd write in the report. "Loitering, suspicious behavior, maybe attempted theft," one said. The sergeant at the desk barely looked up when they brought Michael in. Another one? "What is it this time?" "Suspicious behavior near Winston's jewelry," the officer replied. Didn't like the way he looked. No one flinched at the phrasing. They took Michael to the holding cell without processing him. No phone call, no lawyer, just a cold bench and concrete walls. Still, he didn't yell. He didn't even ask questions. He just sat there, completely still. That's when the sergeant finally picked up Michael's ID from the report tray. He squinted. Something looked off. The badge number. The agency. Before he could say anything, one of the officers laughed. "Yeah, he said something about us not knowing what we were doing." The sergeant narrowed his eyes at the ID again, but shook his head and tossed it aside. No one saw the slight smile forming on Michael's lips as he leaned back against the wall. They didn't know it yet. But this wasn't just another arrest. This was the beginning of the end for that entire department. They brought him in through the back entrance of the Brookville Police Department, where the cameras didn't work, or maybe they were just conveniently pointed at the floor. No one read him his rights. No one mentioned a lawyer. Michael didn't resist. He walked with the same steady pace he had on the sidewalk, as if he had been here before. In some ways he had. Inside, the fluorescent lights buzzed with a tired hum. The air was stale, coffee, sweat, and old frustration. They put him in an empty room. Not an interrogation room. Just a forgotten corner near the evidence locker. No mirror, no camera. A room not meant for anyone to be in. One officer, the tallest one with the jagged scar near his eyebrow, stood in the doorway and chuckled. Still not saying anything, huh? Michael didn't respond. The officer stepped closer and leaned in. You think if you act calm we'll go easy on you? Michael's eyes scanned the patch on his uniform, Sergeant Daniels. He noted the ink stain on his collar, the smudge of old blood on his boots. Then, without a word, turned his gaze to the corner of the ceiling where a camera used to be. Daniels shoved him hard into the chair. You got a smart mouth for someone not saying anything. The second officer, younger, jumpy with the energy of someone trying too hard, stepped forward and slapped Michael across the face. Answer when he talks to you. Still no reaction. Michael just turned back to face the wall, tracing a chipped corner of paint with his eyes. His breathing was steady, too steady. The third officer, an older man with graying temples, stayed by the door. He didn't speak. He didn't move. He just watched. Quietly. Like he was waiting for something. Daniels barked at him. You just gonna stand there, O'Reilly? O'Reilly shrugged. He's not doing anything. What's the point? Daniels glared at him. The point is, we teach him not to walk around here like he owns the place. They left Michael there for hours. No food, no water, no phone call, no name written in the logbook, no fingerprints. As far as the system was concerned, Michael Grayson didn't exist. But Michael was working. Not talking didn't mean not thinking. His eyes mapped the station, the layout of hallways, the badge numbers, which officers checked their phones too much, who left their locker open, which door had a broken lock. He took mental notes, quietly, clinically, as if every mistreatment was simply a piece of evidence. Eventually they threw him into the holding cell. Concrete walls, metal bench, iron bars. Two other men were already there, one younger, pacing, the other, older, sitting silently in the corner. Michael sat opposite them, his back to the wall, hands folded. He scanned the corner of the ceiling. No camera. The older man stared at him for a moment, then asked in a low voice, You FBI? Michael didn't flinch. The old man chuckled. You ain't like the others. They come in here, they scream, they cry. You ain't in this hombit and this cell. You ain't in this hombit and ND. It shone all day. The man leaned forward. Who are you, kid? Michael finally spoke. Just 2 words. Just watching. Then silence again. But something had changed. The old man nodded slowly, as if he suddenly understood more than he wanted to. From behind the bars, Daniels called out. Sleep tight, tough guy. Maybe in the morning you'll tell us who you really are. Michael leaned his head back against the wall, and closed his eyes. He already had. They just hadn't figured it out yet. And Michael Grayson wasn't just some guy from the street. He never had been. He was the son of a law professor. A man who used to sit him down at the kitchen table and read Supreme Court rulings out loud, like bedtime stories. While other kids played video games, Michael was memorizing amendments, learning precedent. Justice wasn't just an idea in his house, it was religion. But books weren't enough. At 17, Michael enlisted in the army. He served with quiet discipline, never loud, never reckless, the kind of soldier who got things done without needing applause. In Afghanistan, he led a recon unit through enemy territory, often disappearing for days behind enemy lines with nothing but a radio and a mission. One night, his convoy was ambushed. He pulled 2 men from a burning vehicle, carried one half a mile under sniper fire. He never told anyone about the medal he received for it. It sat in a drawer at his father's house. After his discharge, he was recruited into the DEA. That's where the game changed. Michael had a talent few others did. He could disappear. Not just physically. Socially, culturally. He could walk into any neighborhood, learn the rhythms, the codes, the silences. He didn't fake roles. He absorbed them. In one of his most dangerous assignments, he infiltrated a cartel's drug route through Louisiana by posing as a street preacher. He shaved his head, wore second-hand clothes, preached forgiveness on corners where kids sold crack. For 6 months, he lived among addicts and dealers, earning their trust, until one night, during a fake baptism in a filthy alley, he signaled the team. 6 cartel lieutenants were arrested that night. One of them tried to flee. Michael brought him down with a single move, hand on the man's chest, eyes calm. That operation caught the attention of someone high up in the bureau, and just like that, Michael Grayson was in the FBI, not the badge and cubicle type. The kind that didn't wear badges at all. Undercover work was his world now. He never used his real name. He rotated cities, personalities, backstories. Sometimes he was a convict on parole. Other times, a tech consultant. Once he even played a homeless veteran for 4 months just to track a judge connected to organized crime. And now? Now he was in Brookville. On paper, Brookville was perfect. Clean streets, polite people, high-ranking officials with perfect smiles and clean records. But Michael had read between the lines, the missing reports, the accidental deaths in custody, the number of complaints dismissed before they ever reached court. Brookville had a sickness under its skin, and someone in D.C. wanted answers. Michael was given one directive. Go in, blend in, find out how deep it goes. So he created his latest identity, a quiet man with money and no background. He showed up in town, moved into a modest apartment, and began watching. He didn't expect to be spotted so soon. He didn't expect a simple jewelry store visit to trigger a response. But sometimes, the disease shows itself faster than expected. Now, locked in a cell, beaten, and ignored, Michael wasn't worried, he was observing. Every mistake they made was another thread in the web he was weaving. And soon the whole town would feel it tighten. The night dragged on with nothing but the steady drip of a leaky faucet, and the distant hum of the city beyond the station walls. Michael sat on the cold metal bench, eyes closed but alert. He wasn't just waiting, he was calculating. Then, just as the first faint light of dawn seeped through the grimy window, the silence was shattered by the sudden opening of the heavy steel door. Without a word, 2 men in sharp suits walked into the station, their presence cut through the fog of the morning shift like a blade. They didn't glance at the tired officers chatting by the coffee machine, nor at the scuffed floors or peeling paint. Their focus was singular. They headed straight to the holding cell where Michael sat. Calm as ever, the officers watching exchanged confused glances. No introduction, no explanation, just the unmistakable authority in the way the men moved. One of the suited men pulled out a badge, a federal seal, and unlocked the heavy door. Michael Grayson, the taller one said, his voice low but commanding. Michael stood up, stretched and smiled. A small knowing smile. Thank you, gentlemen. He said quietly. You gave me everything I needed. The officers standing nearby blinked in disbelief. What's going on? One of them stammered, stepping forward. Michael Grayson is an undercover FBI agent. The second man said, scanning the room. He was placed here on a sensitive operation to investigate corruption within your department. A heavy silence filled the room. The sergeant who had overseen the arrest now looked pale. His confident demeanor gone. He swallowed hard and then muttered. I'm sorry, Michael, we should never have arrested you. Michael met his gaze steadily. It's too late for apologies, but maybe now things can start to change. The younger officer who had slapped him the night before avoided eye contact, shifting uncomfortably. One of the agents turned to the gathered officers. Effective immediately. This investigation is federal. No interference. And no further mistreatment. Michael nodded once, then turned to leave with the agents. Before stepping out, he glanced back over his shoulder and said softly, the truth always finds a way. Sometimes it just takes a little patience. As the heavy door clanged shut behind him, the officers were left stunned, their world forever changed by the man they had underestimated. Outside the station, the morning sun was brighter than usual. For Michael, it was just the beginning. The moment Michael stepped out of that holding cell, everything began to unravel. He immediately filed a comprehensive report with the FBI, detailing every abuse of power he had witnessed, every slur, every instance of racial profiling, every case of evidence tampering and wrongful arrests hidden beneath layers of bureaucratic silence. His words were sharp and unflinching. cutting through years of denial like a scalpel. The report didn't stay in a drawer, it went public. Local news outlets picked up the story within hours. Headlines screamed of corruption, injustice, and a police force that had lost its way. Citizens, who had felt powerless, finally found a voice. The quiet whispers of discontent that had simmered beneath the surface erupted into loud, demanding cries for change. Michael watched the chaos unfold from the FBI office. Screens showing live protests, interviews with victims who had been silenced for years, and experts dissecting the systemic problems. It was the reckoning the city desperately needed. The police chief, a man once respected for his polished speeches and community outreach, was abruptly placed on administrative leave, his carefully crafted reputation shattered by the revelations. The county prosecutor, who had long ignored complaints and swept investigations under the rug, suddenly found himself under scrutiny. Rumors circulated in the department. Some officers were relieved, others furious. A few still clung stubbornly to the old ways, refusing to believe their world was collapsing. But the people had changed. They were no longer afraid. Neighborhood meetings filled with residents sharing stories of harassment and fear. Activists organized rallies, demanding transparency and accountability. Former victims spoke openly for the first time. Michael knew this was only the beginning. The system was cracking, yes, but the fight to rebuild it fairly would be long and brutal. As the investigation deepened, Michael encountered resistance from some corners within law enforcement. Subtle warnings, veiled threats, and carefully orchestrated attempts to discredit the probe tried to slow him down. But he was relentless. Every piece of evidence uncovered, every witness who found the courage to speak, strengthened the case. The collapse of the system wasn't just about exposing corrupt officers, it was about restoring hope to a city that had lost faith, and Michael was determined to see it through. The aftermath was unlike anything Brookville had ever seen. The police precinct was shut down temporarily, pending a full federal audit. The usual hum of activity was replaced by silence and sterile inspections. Boxes of files were carried out one after another, evidence meticulously catalogued under harsh fluorescent lights. A temporary administration was installed. Outsiders brought in to clean the house. They didn't just rearrange desks or rewrite protocols. They tore down the walls of complacency and built foundations on transparency and accountability. At the heart of it all was Michael Grayson. During the public hearings, one officer, the same one who had taunted and struck Michael in that cold cell, broke down in tears. His voice trembled as he spoke before the panel and the cameras. "I didn't know," he said quietly. "I didn't realize how deep the problem was. I thought I was just doing my job. I'm sorry, but it was too late for apologies. The damage had been done, and the city demanded more than words." Yet there was a glimmer of hope in those moments of reckoning. The system was imperfect, yes, but it could be fixed. Michael, now free, walked back into the city streets with a quiet confidence. The same streets where he had been wrongfully accused, treated like a suspect, even when he was doing nothing wrong. He found himself standing again outside the jewelry store, the very place where it all started. This time there was no suspicion, no harsh eyes watching him. He stepped inside, greeted the clerk with a nod, and chose the same ring he had only looked at before. With a small smile he purchased it. It wasn't just a piece of jewelry, it was a symbol. A symbol that justice, no matter how delayed or obstructed, was still possible, and that sometimes the truth had to be uncovered the hard way, but in the end it could shine brighter than any diamond.